a kettlebell. We've got a lot of exercises lined up for you guys, so let's get to it. To do a goblet squat. So Ryan is going to have the kettlebell in both hands, but he's going to lift the kettlebell up to where the handles are in his grip and his hands are off to the side of this grip. His thumbs are looped underneath to help hold the heavy kettlebell in his hands. Okay, so keeping the elbows down, he's going to squat down into a regular squat. So he's got a nice wide stance here. His feet are going to be turned out a little bit, slightly externally rotated, so he can get that and drop nice and deep into that squat and use his glutes, right? Legs, everything, lower body is slowly moving down, and he's using all of the strength in his glutes and quads to drive back up, right? And he's keeping his torso tall, the kettlebell's in close to the body to stay close to the center of gravity. And if he wanted to make it a little bit more challenging, all he would need to do is, as he comes up, he can also now press the kettlebell up, slightly change the movement a little bit. You make it a little bit more dynamic. If he needed to make it a little bit easier, he could modify it by just using slightly lighter kettlebell weight. Okay, let's talk about the single arm squat press. So Ryan is going to start with the kettlebell in his hands, but he's got to get it up onto his shoulder. So he's going to do a little bit of a clean catch there, as you can see, just a little bit of a flick of the wrist. Has the kettlebell resting on his shoulder right here. And he's going to try to keep his torso tall, shoulders back. He's got a nice wide squat stance here. Legs are a little bit externally rotated. He's going to start by driving his hips back a little bit and dropping into the squat. And on the way back up, he's going to create a lot of power and press it up as high as he can. He's trying to use this velocity that he's creating here through his hips to help assist with the shoulder press. What I don't want to see is Ryan stopping at the top and pausing before he presses it up, because what that does is it takes the velocity and the momentum out of the equation and forces you to use a lot more shoulder when really this is a full body movement. Okay, so we're going to do a renegade row with the kettlebell. It's a single arm renegade row. Typically you would have maybe dumbbells in either hand or both hands. In this case, we're going to use a kettlebell, so the range of motion is going to be slightly smaller. Ryan's going to go ahead and get into a push-up position with feet slightly wider than usual to create a little bit bigger base of support. It's going to allow him to help keep his hips stable as he does this row. He really wants to try to keep his entire body stable, not allowing it to twist as he does this row. Very, very challenging to stabilize with your core and your hips throughout this movement. Notice he lifts the elbow high slowly. This is a very slow, controlled movement because he's trying to utilize as much of his back as he can here, as he's also really utilizing his core to be able to hold this movement without letting his body shift much. Okay, Ryan's going to do a single arm bent over row with a kettlebell in his hand. So you can see he's got the kettlebell right now just in one of his hands, whichever he wants to use first. He's going to take a slightly wider than hip width stance here, and feet are just slightly externally rotated. The main thing here is Ryan's going to hinge at the hips. He's going to keep a very slight bend in his knees, but he really wants to make sure he has the posture in his back. Nice flat back, shoulders pulled back here, and you can see as he rows, he's leading with his elbow, bringing it all the way up towards the ceiling, and he turns his palm in a little bit. So you see that little bit of a twist as he rows. That helps him keep that kettlebell and arm in close to his body. Exhaling as he rows the kettlebell up and maintains great posture in his back the entire time. Okay, so we've got another challenging balance exercise. It's going to be a single leg bicep curl. So Ryan's going to have the kettlebell in one hand, the side that he's going to do the bicep curl on, and then his opposite leg is going to be lifted in the air. So it's very challenging for balance, like I said. So go ahead and bring that knee up, Ryan. Now, as soon as he brings that knee off the ground, he's shifting his body weight onto his other foot, left foot that's on the ground here, slight bend in the knee. He's got his shoulders pulled back. That's going to maintain that posture the entire time. His elbow's going to stay right next to his side. He's not going to let it leave his side as he curls. So go ahead, Ryan, give us a bicep curl, and you notice that he turns his palm up as he curls up, and then when he comes back down, he's going to go ahead and turn that palm in, right? So twist on the way up and twist it down and in on the way back down. Maintaining great posture, keeping the elbow right by his sides. Very challenging bicep curl combination balance exercise. All right, so next we have a stationary lunge. What Ryan's going to do is he's going to take a moderate step back, but what he's going to try to do when he steps back is keep most of his body weight on his front foot. So he's really going to reach with that toe, and he's going to keep his heel really high off the ground when that toe touches the ground back there. That's to ensure that he keeps his body weight forward on that front foot. Go ahead, Ryan, and step back into the lunge here. Now, You can see the kettlebells hanging off to the side. He's just gonna keep his torso tall, shoulders back, chest up. As he drops down into the lunge, he doesn't let his knee touch the ground. He drives back up off the heel of his front foot, keeping the body weight on, most of the body weight on the front leg, driving off the heel so you can activate the glutes on the front leg and have the glutes do most of the work for this exercise. So you can see he's not stepping anymore after he's already stepped back into the lunge, and he's maintaining the constant work here on this leg in the front right now. So we're focusing on the left leg, doing most of the work, exhaling on the way up, using the glutes. Okay, now we're going to do a reverse lunge, and there's a couple different ways you can do this. You can choose to stay on one leg the entire time, or you can choose to alternate legs, but the kettlebell, however, will stay in one hand the entire time. So first thing first, Ryan's gonna make sure his shoulders are pulled back, right? He's got great posture here. He's going to extend one leg back, whichever one he wants to start with here, keeping his heel high, body weight stays on the front foot mostly. He's really trying to target the front leg, doing most of the work with this exercise. So he drops down and steps forward out of the lunge, switches to the other leg, step back, drop into the lunge, step forward out of it, again using the front leg to do most of the work, trying not to let the knee touch the ground. It's okay if it does, but don't rest body weight on the ground. Just try to find a spot that's maybe just an inch or two above the ground. Exhaling on the way up, again focusing on that front leg, doing most of the work. Okay, let's talk about the reverse lunge with a twist. Now, we're literally going to be twisting the torso on this exercise, but first what we have to do is get the kettlebell into the right position. So Ryan's gonna go ahead and put the kettlebell in both hands, bringing it up into kind of the goblet position here, right? He's got his elbows in close. He's gonna keep this kettlebell touching his chest the entire time. You don't wanna move it away from your body because that's gonna change your center of gravity, put some undue stress on your lower back. That's what we wanna try to avoid, okay? So we're really gonna try to use our core as we twist. And Ryan's gonna choose whatever leg he wants to step back here with first into the lunge position, right? And now, because he chose his right leg, he's now twisting over the forward leg. You always want to twist over whatever leg is forward. He's going to switch to the other leg now, and as he drops down, notice he waits till he gets to the bottom of the range of motion before he twists. He comes all the way back to the middle center before he steps up out of the lunge. And again, he's trying to keep most of his body weight on the front leg, on the heel of the front foot, trying to utilize the glutes on the front leg to do a majority of the work. Okay, let's talk about the kettlebell swing, and specifically with both hands. So a two-handed grip, double grip kettlebell swing. You'll notice that the kettlebell's on the ground right now. Ryan's gonna pick up the kettlebell with really good technique. So he's gonna keep his torso tall, shoulders back, chest up, doing a nice little squat here, utilizing his legs and his hips, his glutes, everything to lift the heavy kettlebell off the ground. You want this to be pretty heavy, not too light, because it's hard to create the momentum of the pendulum swing here. Okay, so Ryan's gonna start with a little bit smaller movement, hinging at his hips. You can see a slight bend in the knees. What he's really trying to do is create enough momentum here to get that kettlebell to come all the way up to eyeball level. You can see as he swings, he's really driving his hips forward to help create that power, and just enough power to get that kettlebell up to eyeball level, cutting the power off right before it gets there. And then as the kettlebell comes back down and reverses direction, you notice that he's keeping his torso tall, catching it with his hips, absorbing that velocity and momentum into his hips, and then recreating and regenerating that velocity on the way back up. Very powerful movement. Okay, let's talk about the single leg Romanian deadlift. So Ryan has a kettlebell in his left hand, which means he's going to lift his right knee off of the ground, okay? And he's going to balance on one foot. He's going to try to keep his center of gravity right on the arch of his foot, right in the middle, using his glutes to help stabilize. So Ryan, go ahead and lift your leg up here, get into position. Now Ryan's gonna kick his leg back and hinge at the hips, leaning his torso forward, letting the kettlebell come down where gravity wants it, and then he's gonna come right back up, exhaling, okay? Very, very challenging balance exercise. Balance, strength, coordination, so nice and slow and controlled. You can hear him exhaling on the way up. Okay, let's talk about the single leg Romanian deadlift, and we're gonna add a row at the bottom of the range of motion. So Ryan's got the kettlebell in his left hand, and he's going to lift his right leg up. Go ahead, Ryan. And he's going to make sure his center of gravity stays on the arch of his down foot. He's gonna go ahead and kick his left foot back, creating a straight line from the ankle to the shoulder, and then he's gonna row the kettlebell at the bottom. He's gonna go ahead and bring it down, and then bring the knee all the way back up before he exhales and kicks his foot back again. Okay, let's talk about the single arm clean catch. So Ryan's holding a kettlebell. He's gonna put it into one of his hands, whichever one he prefers to start with here. Okay, he's gonna take a slightly wider than hip width stance. Feet are just a little bit externally rotated. The idea here is to create enough momentum to flip this kettlebell over the wrist and have it land perfectly on the shoulder without a lot of impact. So as Ryan flips and catches the kettlebell, he's actually going to absorb a little bit of the weight into his body by bending his knees and dropping a little bit with the catch. So go ahead and Ryan, show them what this looks like. A little bit of a drop there. You can see he creates momentum on the way up, flips the kettlebell over the top, right, and then he's easily letting it twist off to the side to come back down. That's one option that's slightly safer to do. You can also flip the kettlebell over your hand, but it's a little bit more challenging to catch that weight on the way back down if you do it that way. So this way is very safe. All you need to do is make sure that when you catch that kettlebell, a little bit of absorption. All right, so let's talk about the Renegade Flare. It's similar to the Renegade Row, except this time, instead of just pulling the kettlebell straight up like you would with the row, you're gonna be flaring it out to the side. And it's kind of like a kettlebell swing, where you create the pendulum and the momentum. So you wanna try to do the same thing here, except now, the kettlebell's going out to the side, okay? And you wanna try to keep your hips, your torso, everything from twisting. You wanna try to keep it very stable as you flare. It's a core exercise. So Ryan's gonna go ahead and get into the push-up position here. Feet are wide for a base of support here. He's got a lot of his body weight on his hand here. He's gonna go ahead and lift the kettlebell off the ground and bring it under his chest and start to create that momentum. And you can see he creates the pendulum swing. Keep pulling his hand in a little bit close as he brings the kettlebell back down so it doesn't hit the ground. And he's doing a good job of keeping his hips and his torso stable. Okay, next we're gonna do a single leg shoulder press. So that means Ryan's gonna be standing on one foot while in the other hand he's got a kettlebell resting on his shoulder and he's gonna press it up in the air. So go ahead, first what we wanna do is get the kettlebell onto the shoulder. So Ryan's going to create a little bit of momentum here by dropping the hips, flip the kettlebell over, catch it with a soft catch on the shoulder. He bends into the knees. Now it's resting on his shoulder here. Now he's going to lift his opposite leg up. So he's got his right knee up and he's got the kettlebell here in his left hand. Now very, very challenging balance exercise. He's got a slight bend in his knees, using his glutes here to stabilize, and he's just going to press the kettlebell straight up as he balances on one foot. Exhale on the way up, let it come right back down to the shoulder. Perfect extension, and then when you get done, bring the other foot back down to the ground. Okay, let's talk about the reverse lunge with a cross under. So first things first, you gotta make sure that the kettlebell is off to the side of the grip. So you don't wanna have your hand in the middle of the handle here, so we're gonna actually pull it off to the side like that because that's gonna make an easier handoff. So it's just a regular reverse lunge. So Ryan is going to choose, in this case, the leg that's on the same side as the kettlebell. Okay, so he's going to go ahead and kick that leg back into the lunge here. We're gonna keep the heel high. Notice as he crosses under, he turns his hands to hand off and then opens his hands up as he comes up out of the lunge. Twist as you hand off, open. Dropping down into the lunge, keeping his knee very close to the ground, not touching the ground. But you can see the handoff here is very smooth as he keeps his torso tall. He's not allowing his shoulders to roll forward at all, keeping very good posture. And again, focusing on the front leg, doing most of the work to get up out of the lunge position, driving off the heel, making the glutes on the front leg do a majority of the work. Okay, let's talk about the kettlebell swing. This time it's going to be a switch grip. So you're going to be swinging the kettlebell with one hand, and at the top of the range of motion, you're going to release the kettlebell and catch it with the other hand. Okay, so it's similar to the double hand swing. Ryan's going to go ahead and pick up this kettlebell up with both hands, right? He's using tall torso, great technique here, lifting with his hips, using his legs, okay? Now what he wants to do here is now only holding onto the kettlebell with one hand, with the other arm kind of out wherever he wants it for balance, okay? But what he's going to do is start to create a little bit of momentum, just like with the two-handed grip, and he's going to get that kettlebell to come all the way up to eyeball level, and he's going to release that grip right before he gets to the top to try to keep that kettlebell from flipping around, right? So he keeps the handle nice and level so it's easy to catch at the top of the range of motion, driving through the hips, creating the power through the glutes, and then catching with the hips on the way back down to control that velocity and then recreate the power on the way up. Okay, let's do another kettlebell swing. This one's going to be a single hand kettlebell swing. He's going to keep it in one hand the whole time. So Ryan, go ahead and pick the kettlebell up off the ground with good technique, lifting up through the hips, using his hips to lift the kettlebell, keeping the torso tall, shoulders back. Ryan's going to now just hold the kettlebell with one hand, right? So he centered his hand in the grip there. Other arm here is just out to the side, wherever Ryan feels it's most comfortable, wherever he needs it, okay? And he's going to start to create that momentum by hinging at the hips, hinging, leaning the torso forward a little bit as he hinges, keeping the body weight centered on his feet. And as he comes up, you notice he's creating more and more power to bring the kettlebell right to eyeball level. He's driving his hips forward, pulling his shoulders back on the way up, keeping good posture, exhaling on the way up, catching the momentum on the way down with his hips, and then recreating that power on the way back up, driving through the glutes to create that powerful movement up. Okay, let's talk about the push-up clean press. It's a very, very dynamic movement. Lots of explosive power necessary to complete this movement. So what Ryan needs to do is hold the kettlebell in one hand, and he's going to actually drop down into the ground into the push-up position, and at the same time he's going to kick his feet back. Now he's got most of his body weight here on his left hand, not the hand with the kettlebell, because we want to avoid having it flop off to the side. He's going to keep his elbow in close to his body here as he does one push-up. Now when he comes up out of the push-up, he's going to explode out of it and jump his feet forward. Now notice that at the bottom of that range of motion, go ahead and come back down here into that squat for a second, Ryan. So at the bottom of the range of motion here, you can see his torso is pulled tall, right? Shoulders back. He's in a nice squat. He's going to use his hips to create the power on the way up for the clean catch. Go ahead. And then right here, as he catches, you see the absorption of weight when he catches, right? And he's going to do that right as he catches, and then he's going to bump like that. He's going to use his hips to drive the kettlebell up and take some of the load off of the shoulders. So show them one more all the way through here. We've got the push up, and he pops up out of it, jumps to position, good flip, and a little bit of a pop for the press.
Gymaster, trọn gói dịch vụ, trọn tâm tư vấn.